Hello everyone, it's Mike from Voluntary Virtues. Hope you guys are having a great day. I want to discuss this article on salon.com titled, Libertarians are very confused about capitalism. And it was written on November 8th, 2013. And so I saw this article, read over it. It's really short, so we shouldn't be here too long. And I was rather upset with the findings and their reporting. So let's go over this real quick. They start off by talking about how it's true that we don't have a free market, and that we don't. What we have today is not a free market. So at least they're upfront and honest about that. And nor have we ever seen a truly free market. A true free market would mean no government, right? So not even a violent monopoly on arbitration services. There would be literally no central planned monopoly whatsoever. Just people living through their own individual freedom and property rights. But one mistake that Salon makes is stating that capitalism is just when money is given the forefront of attention in society. So this is just not the case. Capital arises through property rights. Capital arises through property rights. There are only two ways that you can actually justly acquire capital, or else it's not real capital. It's just stolen property that belongs to someone else. And now, the first is homesteading. By mixing your labor with the resource, you can claim property over the said resource. And sure, there are some gray areas in here, but so is there in various other things, like the definition of aggression. I mean, when does my fist start to hit your nose, or when does it become a threat? This is something that is hard to translate, but I think common law could easily do this. But this doesn't alter the underlying premise, though. The second way to acquire capital is to take this homesteaded resource and voluntarily trade for it, right? So, now because we live in a state, a portion of this wealth has been looted, ergo not homesteaded or voluntarily traded, but stolen. Outright theft. Now, this once, or what should be capital, rightly belongs to the person who was looted from, not those doing the looting. So the very act of enabling a government to loot makes it true free market capitalism impossible, absolutely impossible, as it requires no legalized theft for true capitalism to occur. Otherwise, capitalism and free markets are being distorted through criminal actions. Okay, so this is why we can safely and correctly, in my opinion, state that capitalism has never existed. The mere existence of money is not capitalism. Okay, capitalism is when those who justly acquire property are allowed to claim ownership and control. So capitalism is ethical money. Everything else, statism included, is an unethical code of conduct for human society. Now, I agree that the people who are politically connected today, who use the gun of the state for their advantage, they did not earn their money the right way, right? Through answering to the wants and needs voluntarily on the free market. Not all rich people are bad. I mean, some actually do use innovation and efficiency and answer to others to earn their income. But there are a lot of people who don't and who didn't in the past. So if I'm looking at Salon's article as a whole, what they're really trying to get at is the question is, what do we do about all those people who earned their money the wrong way? Because they're just going to have this money that they earned through the state, and all this property they earned through the state incorrectly. And obviously this is a questionable fear. So I do appreciate Salon for actually bringing up this topic, because we do have to discuss this. Now, Salon thinks taxing and spending is the best option, which means they are still foolish enough to believe that tax money is going to go to the public. I mean, hello? Have you not been paying attention, right? Those who are politically connected receive tax loopholes and subsidies and numerous monetary advantages. So you're just feeding the elite through taxation. The same people that you're bitching about getting the property, taxation's giving it to those people to control. So there is no easy answer such as, just let the state do it. You know, the same ideal which basically enables and protects the elites in the state today. So anyway, one of their main fears and fallacies, which is completely unfounded, is the idea that Nike or British Petroleum or Blackwater will just gain all this power and take over the world, right? But I mean, this is an absolute impossibility. If I had to put it any other way, it's just not that simple. Only the state has ever been able to capture and condition this many minds into believing it has authority that other people don't. So most people who protest large companies do so because of their state advantage, because the companies do have some kind of a state advantage, although the people who actually are protesting the companies might not look that deep, right? So it reminds me of people who are upset about GMOs, yet they don't say anything about intellectual property. And it's like, well, if that's really your main concern, is that they're getting big and powerful, have you ever looked at patent law or how they sway people through lobbying? I think they do on some front on the lobbying side, just to make it look like there's big business taking over government. But then they won't go the next step and show how that without the government, they wouldn't have these IP laws. So only the state can steal money and give the illusion of legitimacy to the masses. Only the state can conflate this consent and non-aggression law with government arbitrary mandates. Now, once we achieve polycentric law, no institution would hold this illusion of the state. Again, nobody ever would. And we have all this time, this extra time that we have, that we scrutinize businesses that are getting advantages from the state, just to outright attack them for any practices. Obviously, there wouldn't be a state for them to lobby to, for people to waste billions or trillions of hours talking about how they're horrible companies. All you'd have to do now is just point out whatever they're doing in the free market that's wrong. I mean, imagine all this time that's spent on politics if we're actually focusing on everything people are concerned about, right? Food, healthcare, and all this other stuff. So we wouldn't have to waste time talking about the corruption of politicians and trying to expose other corruption in the market. We could just focus on the market corruption, right? People would finally start to see each other as ethical equals, and CEOs of protection firms would make more money answering to the wants and needs of the consumers rather than using the state to rent politicians for their gain. I mean, this is an inevitable scenario of all central planned institutions, of all governments. So there is no perfect utopian world, but making it so that everyone is ethically equal under non-aggression is probably the best shot that we have. I mean, get rid of the special advantages for the politically connected, and the rest will work itself out. Homestead public property. I mean, do whatever you can not to give the elites that have used government against you any more of your support, right? Neither financial nor moral. Take your capital to different companies that support your vision. And once the special advantages of the state are abolished, it will be easier, much easier, for everyone to see our ethical equality under non-aggression. And just like chain slavery, political slavery will never come back. And in its place, efficient, responsive, polycentric law will take humanity to new heights that were only once imagined. So when you see articles like this from the Salon, they are the ones who don't understand that capital stems from individuals and that there's no such thing as a government that can own property. This is why all public property is just a fraud, because there's no individual there, there's no accountability, it's tracked at the commons, right? So there's no accountability, no responsibility for any of their political actions. They can just make these bogus promises and I mean, Obamacare is a perfect example, but you see it from all sides. So I don't want to single out the Democrats, but all of them are the same way in this aspect, right? They are all confused on what capitalism is. And then they come off with these elitist articles talking about how they know what capitalism is, even though they've probably never even studied it. About 1/100th of as in depth as I have. So it's really a sham when you see articles like this and they're just not giving. And then they try and focus on Ron Paul instead of the anarcho-capitalist movement as a whole. Of course, this is what they're going to do: is try and use people in politics and talk about David Duke and the rest of this nonsense, right? So really, if I had to summarize the Salon article, it's afraid that once we get rid of government, all these elites are going to take over. But the thing is, the elites go into government because it makes them even more powerful in the first place. And so all this property that they might have gotten illegitimately, the market will wash that back out. It's kind of like the booms and the busts, the reason that they don't want the market to have the corrections all by itself. It wants to hedge on these. It wants to see it get an advantage and hedge on them in the market. That's one thing that some people like to do, because they know that the state will be there to prop up the stock market through quantitative easing, and then they'll just sell right when they hear that they're about to taper, and knowing that the correction is going to take place. So in some cases, these people actually have many political connections at the top where they know what's going on because of government, and they have their special advantages because of government. So the thought that we're going to empower the elites more by taking away their special advantages is absolute nonsense. It's just naivety and insanity all combined into one horrible blender. And here's your smoothie called statism, right? So anyway, I hope this kind of gives you a perspective on where us true free market capitalists are coming from, understanding that you're not going to have true free market capitalism around a state. And as long as people try to even argue this fact without bringing up a stateless society or a free market as a whole, and then being so fear-mongered against their own freedom, obviously you can just look around you today. That's really the root of the problem. Thank you guys so much for your time. This is Mike from Voluntary Virtues. As you guys know, I will talk to you soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Human beings are meant to be free. Not to be free to aggress upon each other, but to be free from aggression from each other.
Of not having a fire station? Because people are afraid of not having a court system? Because people are afraid they might not have utilities? As if people aren't going to try to sell these things to you left and right once the state's monopoly is abolished? Fear. 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 That is how the state survives.
30 times less murder in Somalia than in Detroit. Now, I'm not saying Somalia is a paradise by any measure.